This is the meeting of the Troy Planning Commission set for August 10, 2016, now in session. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cappers?
Here.
Mayor?
Here.
Mr. Wolke?
Yes. Here.
Mr. Titterington?
Here.
Mr. McGarry?
Here.
Mrs. Mahan? And Mr. Force?
Okay, we have a quorum. We have the minutes before us for our July 27th meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes?
Move for approval.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cappers?
Yes?
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Wolke?
Yes.
Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Okay. The minutes have been accepted. First item before us is the Historic District application of 11 South Market Street. Does staff have a report?
Yes, we do. Bruce Fisher of Cradle Builders is coming before the Planning Commission to request a minor alteration to something that's previously been approved by the Planning Commission, as well as the installation of a wall sign at 11 South Market Street. Previously, they received approval for exterior alterations, but they wish to change some color. The area above the storefront windows is now being proposed to be done in black to enhance and differentiate the space. They're also proposing a 30 square foot wall sign, which would be black and tan, would be computer generated. The tan would be something that would be match the existing tan of the building itself. They're allowed a maximum of 33 square feet, so the sign does meet the sign code, and staff does recommend approval.
Any questions of staff?
The sign that I'm looking at looks more.
Just this one.
Yes.
Let's see which one.
Yep.
Yeah, that one. It doesn't. You said tan. It looks more yellow and over black over yellow.
With the computer generation and trying to do this mock-up, they don't quite look exact, but they are intended to match.
Will that tan match the windows above?
Yes.
So that's where the match is.
Yes.
And then the horizontal lamp board above it, what color is that exactly? Is that a gray, purple?
It's a lavender purple kind of color that's existing. I did include in your packet the original that was submitted previously that was approved, so that way you could take a look at the changes that were proposed. And if you have questions of the applicant, Mr. Fisher is in the audience.
Commission have any other questions for staff or the applicant? Hearing none, I'll entertain some action to be taken.
I move to approve. Second.
There's a motion and support for the motion. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Cappers?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Wolke?
Yes.
Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
The next matter to come before the Commission is the Historic District application for 305 Public Square for installation of a new window sign. Please give us a report.
Yes, Amanda Gibson from ALN Senior Care and Home Services has requested this. They are a new tenant, which will be in the 305 building, which if you're familiar with that section of the quadrant, there is a office space that is next door to David Farrell Square between that location and the Caroline. They will be located in that location. They are proposing a vinyl window cling. It will be exactly as portrayed in the mock-up provided in your report. I did go into some detail, as this is a multi-tenant space, as to how much square feet would be allowed for the location overall. So that way we could compute, as they do have possibly more tenants coming in, so we don't go over the allowed signage for that location. They're proposing 7.7 square feet, which is well below what they have allowed for a maximum. And staff does recommend approval.
Any questions from Commission to staff?
Move for approval.
Motion to approve. Is there support for the motion?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Cappers.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes?
Mr. Wolke.
Yes.
Mr. Titterington.
Yes.
Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Okay, the next matter to come before the commission is a consideration of a recommendation to city council for the amendment of the zoning code. What do you dudes want to do about that?
We got that, thank you.
Peace
To give you some background on what this is, in June, Ohio became the 25th state to enact legislation for the use of medical marijuana. And essentially, what City Council has done, this new legislation wouldn't go into effect until September 8th of 2016. So in July, Troy City Council approved a 6-month moratorium on this to give us time to review this and come up with essentially our course of action. And what we are recommending, I guess I'll kind of go through what it does. So it affects, if you actually read the whole entire chapter, which is chapter 3796, it's 80 some pages. We decided not to include that for your reading pleasure. I did put some information in your packet, highlighted where it talks about what municipalities can do. The two things that relates to zoning, which is why it's coming before the Planning Commission, because it does affect land use, would be that it authorizes essentially the city to adopt regulations to prohibit retail dispensaries, cultivator, and processors. So there's several different pieces to this. Things such as research and development by state law, we essentially, that's already covered in the chapter 3796, so that will already apply. We could not essentially zone those out, if you will. Also, what it does, it prohibits a cultivator, processor, retail dispensary, or laboratory from being located within 500 feet of a public school, church, public library, public playground, or public park. So those are kind of what is in place in the actual ORC as of now. What we are requesting is a recommendation from Planning Commission to City Council for a citywide ban on retail dispensaries, cultivator, and processors as defined by Chapter 3796 of the ORC.
Okay, any questions of staff? Usually when we're receiving these zoning regulations or requests, we see a finalized zoning ordinance. And we don't have anything like that here.
I don't think we do.
Yeah, usually.
So you're going to make
But
it
this
up
will
after
be,
the fact?
yeah, this would be fairly simple. I mean, it'll just codify what's in the report according to Mr. Kerber.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, if we have changes to the zoning code, we might bold and line out, and, where we make changes to it. I do recall that we do that. My question is two questions, Tim, and I just forgot the one, but maybe it'll come back to me. Nice topic to do that. I'll have a senior moment. This recommendation to council, just for clarification, does not take a stance against medical marijuana, correct?
That is
Yes or
correct,
no?
yes.
Okay, and that does not mean that somebody who's under prescription, who goes to another municipality, a pharmacy, whatever, and is legally prescribed by a doctor, that they can't bring it back into the city.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Essentially, if you have a prescription, you could go get that just essentially not inside the city of Troy at a retail dispensary.
And again, we're making the recommendation that City Council would prohibit, as stated. I won't go through all the list, but as stated. So what we're just doing is sharing a recommendation that City Council then will act on, correct? As they have already done with the moratorium.
That's correct.
Right.
Well, I was surprised to see that a citywide prohibition on an activity comes under the zoning code. Now, I understand the law director feels that it does, and having been previously admonished not to practice law without a license, I will dispute that. But as a proponent or a supporter of medical marijuana, I have a problem with this. Now, I see there are only 5 of us here, and if anybody else votes my way, this will go to council as a negative recommendation, which would require a supermajority for them to act. So I don't know if you want to continue with this or table it until we have a full commission, or how do you want to handle this?
Sure, I
Well,
understand.
I think if it's still a majority of those here, then I don't know that it'll go as a negative recommendation, it'll just go as a non-recommendation. Isn't that correct? It may still take a supermajority, but we can get clarification from Grant on that one.
Yeah. I was under the impression that it needed 4
We needed 4 votes.
votes.
You need
yeah.
4 votes to make a positive recommendation, yes.
Yes.
I guess my only other, my comment, Larry, and I too am not a member of the bar, but we do have citywide zoning regulations in a section of the zoning code that don't pertain to specific zoning districts, but are things that we don't want to happen in any of the zoning districts. So that's why Grant identified it as a zoning issue, because it is land use.
I just need clarification also, if you could. This would mean that it would be permanent, the dispensaries, cultivated processors would be permanently banned until such time that the ordinance would be repealed?
Or changed, that's correct.
Is there any rational reason why the council chooses to do this? I mean, it's interesting Larry's comment, because I'm not necessarily a proponent of using marijuana, but medical marijuana seems to me that there's going to be obviously an economic benefit, because a lot of people are going to make some money off of this. I don't know whether it's fruitful or not to look at it as any other business in town, and hopefully, spin off to some of the others. I was just curious as to why we're doing it.
I have been part of that conversation as far as the outlawing of dispensaries in town. So, Patrick, can you help illuminate us?
Well, it's a brand new initiative. I mean, it did go through the statewide process last year. It was resoundingly defeated. Our safety forces, particularly our law enforcement, is not in favor of it. It's not something that's been brought to the council yet, so it's premature to conclude that they're going to pass something like this. But from a staff perspective, we don't think it's appropriate. We don't think it's anti-business. More on the dispensary side, since it is only medical marijuana, there were several different issues that were included in the ballot language last year, in addition to the medical marijuana. So there were lots of things to either love or hate in that discussion or that vote, depending on which side you fell on. And this is indeed narrower, but we don't expect that there's going to be independent businesses, and we haven't heard of anything yet, that is going to be completely dedicated to the sales of medical marijuana. And this is not just a dispensary issue, this is also processing and cultivating land use as well. And so as administration, speaking for the mayor, although the mayor will speak on his own, I'm sure, we as a collective felt that if they want to make themselves available, make that available to them, that they should do it in another community, and that this is really not the standard that we have in Troy.
Well, I think what was defeated was a provision that it was, first of all, a monopoly where several people would be allowed to grow it and nobody else. But I think it was also more of a recreational type of usage, which, yes, that was defeated, but I think if you looked at the polls that existed at that time and when the General Assembly took it up, the majority of the people in Ohio support medical marijuana. Now, if I have a prescription, I can go out to Meijer or Walmart or whatever and get oxycodone, some pretty heavy-duty stuff and very addictive stuff. By comparison, a prescription for marijuana is pretty innocuous. So again, I just personally have a problem with taking a medical substance, which the medical community would have to find it appropriate for a patient to have it, and say, you can't buy it here, you can't grow it here, you can't process it here. But very addictive things, you can go right out to Walmart and get them. That's my position.
Boy, you know, philosophical, I think this is going to be one of those philosophical discussions, but I'm so, you know, I'm certainly not in favor of allowing marijuana to be legal. I just never have been. And I hear what you're saying, Larry, and I certainly respect all of the people around the table, but I also know that even with prescriptions, people abuse those prescriptions all the time. And I'm a little concerned that this isn't, especially when we're trying to focus on addiction and drug abuse and our DARE resource programs. I guess personally, I'm big for small business. I've demonstrated that. But this is a business I would assume let somebody else have an opportunity and not us. I'm not really in favor of moving. I mean, I would favor the recommendation to council, is what I'm saying. And I understand it's philosophical, and I understand medical marijuana and the value, or at least the research is demonstrating that. But there's abuses go on, as you just said, right now. I'm not in favor of adding to that opportunity for abuse to take place. And so I have a personal, that's just my personal opinion, that I would support a citywide ban, and that doesn't have anything to do with small business, because we have pharmacies, we have all kinds of small businesses. This is just one I just don't feel comfortable having around. That's just my opinion.
Recreational use of marijuana is still a criminal activity.
It is.
Medical marijuana is another issue. There are some good uses for medical marijuana, as I understand it, although I haven't researched it in detail or experienced it myself. Would it help the situation if what we're recommending to council is not necessarily the outlawing of dispensaries, for instance, but just the cultivation and processing of marijuana within city limits?
Why?
Well, just there are two different types of activities. The processing and cultivating can lead to the aroma of marijuana, the side effects of released through the air. I don't know. I'm just same thing that any type of butchering activity might have as far as cows and pigs are concerned. I don't know if that's going to be a difference in any of your thoughts or not if we permit a dispensary, but which would be like a retail pharmacy using it as opposed to cultivating and processing.
You mean allowing dispensaries?
Allowing dispensaries,
but not cultivate or not
processing.
My feeling is that any kind of ban based on what the state law was modified and what is proposed in the state legislature passed it, we're totally hypocritical in the philosophy that we're proposing here.
Well, the state
If I can go to P Hill or I can go to Pickline
I disagree.
and obtain this material and utilize it here legally and for legal reasons, it's the user that you're after, right? I mean, it's not the material. I mean, you're going to ban axes and hammers next because somebody can bash somebody in the head with it or hurt themselves. I mean, that's why we have a state legislature that handles these things.
but they vote.
Just to clarify, Mr. McGarry, the state specifically gives the municipalities the ability to prohibit the activities
No,
that
I
are in the
understand.
ordinance.
No, I
So,
understand.
it's not quite the same or as general as maybe it came across.
Well, if I'm reading Mr. McGarry correctly, it sounds like at most you got 3 votes in favor of this, and if it takes 4 votes to have a favorable recommendation, I'm going to move that we table this until we have the entire commission present.
There's a motion to table. Is there support for the motion?
Second.
Mr. McGarry, seconded. No further discussion on the motion to table. All right, let's take a roll on the motion to table.
Mr. Cappers.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Walke.
Yes.
Mr. Titterington.
Yes.
Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
The matter's now tabled. One of the things that I have to consider here also is there are going to be a requirement that we have a public hearing on this matter when it comes back before us off the table again. If this is an amendment to the zoning regulations, do we need a public hearing? I'm thinking we do.
We have the option.
We have the option to. Well,
Sure.
That'll be part of the agenda item when it comes back off the table, though.
Okay.
All right. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk to the commission about?
Nothing further, thank you.
Does the commission have anything else it wants to discuss? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned.